Welcome back to the Middle Tech Podcast. You got Logan Jones here today, joined by Evan Knowles and TJ Barnett. So we're going to be doing a recap of season 6 of the Middle Tech Podcast. We're going to be talking about everything that went down in season 6, which is pretty insane that we've been doing this for 6 seasons now, going into our 7th season. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite episodes, some of the more significant things we got to cover throughout the season of the podcast, some personal updates, Evan selling Simba, TJ going full-time on full court, Sales River continuing to grow. And then we're also going to be talking about some of the events we put on, as well as some other updates from season 6. So before we do that, we want to get a quick word from our sponsors. We hope you guys enjoy. Before highlighting our sponsors, we'd just like to state that the views and content shared on this platform do not necessarily reflect those of our show sponsors. Middle Tech is presented by KY Innovation, the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development's Office of Entrepreneurship. KY Innovation exists to support and develop Kentucky's startup ecosystem, and we are proud to be supported by an organization whose mission aligns so closely with ours. If you're a founder building in Kentucky, you need to check out the resources that KY Innovation has to offer. You can find more information by clicking the link in our show notes or going to kyinnovation.com. Middle Tech is sponsored by Bolt Marketing. Take your website to the next level with a website that's built to work. At Bolt Marketing, they're revolutionizing websites for small businesses that are affordable, customizable, and hassle-free. Whether you have a construction company, a boutique clothing store, or you own a hot yoga studio, they have options for you. Click the link in our show notes to explore their marketing options that can transform your marketing and grow your business. And as a personal note, Bolt Marketing built our website, and they were awesome to work with throughout the entire process. We highly recommend working with them. All right, fellas, here we are. Let's jump into recapping season 6 here. Evan, why don't you kick us off here? We started off talking about different news stories going on at the beginning of the season. We transitioned into doing interviews like we were used to, but I really enjoyed kind of having both of those throughout the season. So let's talk about, our favorite episodes from both of those styles of interviews. Let's talk about the most significant interviews in your eyes here.
Yeah. Well, I think what we're doing, which is what we have been for 6 years, is testing like what our audience really loves and what they want to hear from us. And we started doing founder interviews, and that really resonated, and we got a lot of growth from that. And we said, well, what else can we do and challenge ourselves with? News was something that we wanted to get into. So every week we were doing recaps of the biggest news stories and tying some of those back to Kentucky. Some of them we weren't. And so we were really just trying to challenge ourselves with new content. So some of my favorite things were covering artificial intelligence. It's very fast developing, very important. It's going to be very impactful. And a lot of investment has been going into it. I have been developing an AI company with a co-founder. We can get into how I sold Simba and now building AI, but covering AI was something that was really eye-opening to me and kind of allowed me to learn about it quickly by talking about it on the podcast. So in general, that's probably a topic that was a favorite of mine. And then episode-wise, my favorite was probably App Harvest. Not because I liked covering the outcome, but because that was really kind of the first piece I did, kind of investigative journalism, where I really went deep on the company, went deep into their financials, into their operations, hiring, and was actually the first to kind of break a lot of that information to the public. I think that what happened with App Harvest was a lot of positivity and virtue signaling, and so the public really didn't know what was going on with that. And I was definitely the first to kind of open up the doors to the general public of what was really going on behind the scenes, both from a finance perspective and an operational perspective, because nobody was covering that. And so that was kind of interesting to see the public reception of that, which was, really, I think, surprising for me, was how many investment bankers reached out to me, how many just normal everyday retail investors that lost money reached out to me, even App Harvest employees were reaching out to me and saying, thanks for covering the financial side of this. I really didn't have any transparency into this. And so it was interesting to see just the public's reception of a piece like that, of something that was so well covered in Kentucky, and we viewed it as something that's going to change the state in a lot of ways. So I think covering that and kind of opening the doors to what was really happening behind the scenes was both fun, but also eye-opening for the public. So it was a pretty impactful piece. We had thousands and thousands of people listen and read that article.
Yeah, it's probably the most significant thing that happened for Kentucky, certainly for Lexington. We're actually in the office building that App Harvest was originally in. And I think the coolest part of that is, you really dove into a lot of what was released in their financial statements. And a lot of it was kind of obvious before anybody really knew what was going on. Nobody kind of did deep dives like you did. So I think that really paid off in the episodes that we released about that. We had a lot of feedback. It obviously sucks though to have that happen. I know you're planning on doing another episode to talk about the outcome of that and what it means for Kentucky going forward. But I think it was a significant thing for Middle Tech to be reporting on that all the way from the very beginning. We tried our best to be as realistic as possible about everything that was going down there.
And, we started covering them before they even started construction.
Exactly.
So to take it full circle soon with the final episode on outcomes and how we should view this as a state, I think is going to be important, because that needs to come from within our state, from people that are deeply interested and invested into the startup and technology ecosystem, which we are. And so again, unfortunate outcome, but I think it's super important that that's covered in great detail, because the learnings from failure like that are much more valuable when they're covered and shared with everybody.
Yeah, agreed. And aside from covering some of the news, we also covered a lot of awesome entrepreneurs that were building companies here in Kentucky and in this region. So two of my favorite episodes that were more interview based. Obviously, I'm biased, but I really enjoyed having Kobe and Chris, our new Chief Revenue Officer of Sales River, on the podcast. Just talking about how that company transitioned from Leadrilla. We had Leadrilla and Kobe on the podcast twice, and then being able to talk about that transition to Sales River and have Chris on and talk about the transition of that company from more of a service-based company to a SaaS company was a lot of fun, and being able to kind of share my perspective being a part of that for 3.5 years. And then also Cake, which was kind of related to the insurance space. Adam Bowe, who is the CEO of Cake now, really enjoyed that interview. It's fun when you're able to kind of talk about a company that you have some good, we have experience in the insurance industry, so it made a lot of sense what he's building to me. That was another one of my favorite interviews. Aside from that, let's get into talking about some of the things that we've all had going on personally behind the scenes. I think it's known by everyone that typically listens. This is a side thing for us. Middle Tech is a passion project. We all have full-time jobs that we dedicate a majority of our time to and work full-time at. So let's talk a little bit about what we've been working on outside of Middle Tech, because not only do we live and breathe startups, everyone here is either working at a startup or building a startup. Mm-hmm. So TJ, why don't you kick us off talking about Full Court?
Yeah.
So I know it was a big deal for you to go full-time on that. So tell us a little bit about it and how that transition has been for you.
It's super exciting. And I credited a lot of what I learned with Middle Tech to now what I'm doing with Full Court, just understanding operations behind content, taking that, building Full Court, being a part of the NBA and the NFL, and allowing me to understand kind of how to create a content machine and make it scalable for small business, medium-sized business, and large-scale business. And so, I was very much planning on doing a third year at the NFL, but in August we picked up 4 clients, and I just looked at it and said, we got 15 clients with Full Court, NFL season, and Middle Tech. If I did all that, I would burn out, I would crash. And so it really led me to go full time on Full Court and put everything into it. And so I'm very happy and blessed to say that, we're sitting at 25 different brands at Full Court. It's running right now. We just picked up some big contracts, both locally and nationally. And it's one of those things where, the ride is going so fast, I don't have enough time to really appreciate it. And I think it's almost similar to how Middle Tech season 6 turned out. Whereas season 6, we were trying a lot of different things, trying to figure out who we were as a company, with the founders, with the tech updates. And similar to Full Court, I was working part-time. I had started to hire contractors. I had to figure out operationally who we were and how to operate and how to run. And that's something that's been really fun to be a part of. I give a lot of credit to my team. Without them, we wouldn't be able to produce the content that we do. And it's just been a lot of fun, man. And like I said, both with Middle Tech and Full Court, huge learning year. And I'm really looking forward to 24 because, we're bringing on 2 full-time employees. So that's like very humbling in my aspect too. It's humbling and scary. And I'm sure every founder can relate. You're excited to expand your company, but you're also scared because now you have somebody's life kind of, in your hands with the salary and all that great stuff. So just really excited, nervous, and ready to go.
And I know you've talked about it on the podcast before and shared about it obviously on social media, but for anybody that might not be aware of what Full Court actually does, talk about, your elevator pitch for Full Court and just hit on some of the clients that you're serving right now.
Yeah, so Full Court's a social media marketing agency that creates amazing content to help clients win on social. It's full service, full scale. We create the strategy, create the calendar, create the content, graphics, video, and then we have videographers, photographers, anything that you need fully focused on social media. It's there's a lot of agencies out there that have, a lot of marketing agencies or a lot of, social media agencies that do, ads or website or messaging. Like, no, we're strictly focused on social because it's become so big. I mean, 23, if you don't have a social media presence, you're losing a lot of credibility as a brand. And it really goes across, all niches, all industries, all brands. It's hard to have a business in 23 and not be active on social in some way. So we really saw that, took advantage of it, built a really great team. And some of the brands that are here locally, one of my favorites, Athlete Advantage. We do Athlete Advantage Social, 15 Club. For those that don't know, the 15 Club is an NIL collective or NIL sports agency for the University of Kentucky. They just became the official partners for them. So that was a big one with my sports background, obviously. Got our first NFL athlete, Rondale Moore, receiver for the Cardinals. That was huge. And we just signed Gus's world famous fried chicken here in Lexington, hopefully working towards a national deal in the next coming weeks. So it's just a lot of hard work. And, we started the year with five brands. We're at 25 now. It's insane growth. It just shows you the need and shows you that we're in a good spot in the market to kind of take off in 24.
That's awesome. And Evan, you had some huge stuff going on this year. You spent a lot of the year building up Simba. Then you ultimately had an exit. So I know we're probably going to do a recap episode of that and really do a deep dive on what you learned from that and what your experience was like building a company and then ultimately exiting that company. But let's just touch briefly on what it was like to sell that company and, what the process was like and anything you feel like sharing and kind of a high level overview of that.
Yeah. So definitely the most challenging year, I think, professionally for me. And I love that. So at the beginning of the year, we raised a bridge round to increase our runway. So we raised total just under about $1 million. But unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much money you raise, how great your product is, if you don't find kind of that go-to-market that's repeatable and a way to get it to scale, we just unfortunately weren't able to figure that out. The real estate industry, for those that didn't know what Simba was, we were building a fintech company specifically for residential real estate agents. And so it was a financial product to help them manage their business. And so we had built that and tried to take it to market unsuccessfully. And so what we had to do was look at ourselves and say, we need a positive outcome of this, at least with the best, make the best of the circumstances we have. And so we had to exit the company because we were not able to continue raising any more capital. And so luckily there was a great company that acquired us. I can't speak too much about it, unfortunately, because of confidentiality. They have some super exciting things they want to do with the business going forward. So it's going to be exciting to see how it grows. But sold that in about August of this year. And since then, been traveling and just kind of relaxing. It's been a crazy ride. And so I'm just kind of recharging, and I'm working on, a new project. And so soon I'll be sharing what that is if it works out. Got to test some things first, but definitely, most challenging year, I would say, of my life overall, which again, I love. And so part of that was, exiting Simba, which is the biggest thing probably that happened this year.
What was the most challenging part of it?
I would say dealing with the team. As CEO, it's your job to be the most optimistic person on the team and make sure that everybody on the team is optimistic as well. And there comes a point when you trip a line where you're no longer able to do that, and you have to look out for their well-being and say, hey, we don't have the runway for me to continue to take care of you. You have to take care of yourself. And when that happens, I can't really describe what that feeling's like. It's very hard. And so when that starts to build and you get closer to that point, the stress and just the anxiety and kind of the struggles that go along with that from a mental health perspective and just everything as an entrepreneur kind of hits you at once. And so when you have that effect on you, it's tough. So that's probably the hardest thing is just, knowing, like TJ said a second ago, when you have full-time employees and they've got families and their health insurance is, in your hands, and you have so much going for them in their lives and responsible for them, and you have to look them in the face and say you no longer take care of them, is a really hard thing. but also just in general, like throwing yourself so heavily into a project and a company like that for years. We were working on that for about 3.5 years and got it so far, but to know we didn't reach our goal, that's super challenging. So that's just part of the journey. That's part of entrepreneurship. And you just have to, embrace that. And the reason I love it is just because, the next one will be much easier from a knowledge perspective and what I learned and can apply to the next one.
Yeah, it was really cool watching you build that company. I'm sure you've learned a ton from it, and it'll be exciting to go through and do a recap of everything. I know you've got an article. You're likely going to release about all that, and we'll sit down and do a deep dive sometime in season 7. So be looking out for that. As for me, it's been a big year of consistency with Sales River for the most part. We raised a Series A, raised $3.9 million in a Series A. We officially launched Sales River. So we were Leadrilla for the first 3 years that I was around. And then this year, formally launched Sales River, which we essentially just took the software that we built with Leadrilla, spun that into a software company to where we're taking the software that we built and offering that as a software solution to our clients now, like Humana and AmeriLife primarily, as well as a few other big clients. And so that's just been, a big change. It's basically been like starting a whole new company, figuring out how to build a sales process for that. And as part of that, we ended up hiring on a chief revenue officer, which has been a huge change, not only, especially for me since I was on the sales team, but for the entire team and the culture of our team. And so that's just been a huge learning experience. It's been a step out of the comfort zone. It's been a learning experience, learning how to do things like cold outreach, try and build a sales process there. And I probably learned more in this past 6 months, I would say, than I did through any of my college career, as far as like career wise, things that are important to learn. And probably in the full 3 years that I was here, I'd say the most learning was packed into this past 6 months, because there's so much, there's just a lot more pushing forward now that we had raised capital and had a chief revenue officer.
Just real quick. So you talk about the growth of the company. I mean, you were here from, 3 years ago when it was how many people?
Yeah, I was a 5th employee.
Yeah, so 5 to 22. I mean, talk about how that shakes up a company and how you guys were able to navigate that through the past year, especially.
Yeah. I think one of the most significant things of like growing a company from 5 people to 22 is the changes in culture that happen. I'm probably going to end up writing an article kind of about what it's been like to be with a startup for 3.5 years now and to join on as the 5th employee. And as I was thinking about that, the one way I would kind of describe joining the company as the 5th employee was like startup paradise for a little while. The revenue was flowing in, it was growing.
We definitely know what that's like.
Yeah, we had huge clients coming in. Everything was awesome. And it was just like, I knew that the culture we had of being able to like go out to lunch for, an hour and a half a day, play this Pongrilla, this game that we invented in the office. Like we were having a lot of fun at the same time, but I knew eventually it was going to have to be like heads down, start really grinding to get where we needed to go. And I think that culture shift has been one of like the more challenging things to figure out as we grow from 5 people to 22. And then also it's just like, when you start growing like that, we moved from an open floor plan into actual offices. And then that changes the dynamics in the office and how you're communicating with the rest of the people you're working with. And I think, the culture shift has been one of the things that has been more difficult to figure out, but also part of just growing as a company, figuring out that part of it. I will say I don't have a ton of details to talk about yet. It is time for a transition there, so we'll have more to talk about on that realm in season 7. But moving on from talking about personal things, let's talk about events. That was another big part of season 6 for us. TJ, you kind of led the charge there in helping us plan events, helping us execute those events, and we had some really successful events this year. So let's recap some of those events. Let's talk about the Blue North event first. So why don't you just give us a recap on planning those events and what they're about, how we went about pulling them off, and our plans going forward.
Yeah, never thought that I would ever have event planner under a role description for me in any capacity. But this year really changed that. We hosted, I think, 3 events with Middle Tech, 3 with Develop Lex. And it was a lot of fun, man. It's stressful, especially the panels when we had so many errors with the mic and audio setup. But it's fun, being able to just get with the guys, get with everybody, and put on something that the community can be a part of It was a lot of fun, and the reward of watching it unfold, right? It's so stressful leading up to it, but watching it unfold, people, having drinks, having food, and connecting, that was really rewarding. And so the Blue North event was huge. Shout out to Dave Knox of Blue North for helping us put that together. Super excited to continue partnering with them in the future. But that was the biggest one we've hosted for either brand, DevelopX Middle Tech. 90 people around there showed up. We were, had the drinks were definitely flowing.
We took care of the bar tab.
Definitely took care of it. And had some great pizza and really great conversation that Evan had moderated. And just seeing the like I said, the camaraderie that was being built, the connections that were being made, and seeing how close knit Northern Kentucky is. That's something that I didn't really anticipate, was just kind of the community around there, but they're growing like crazy, man.
Yeah, it's much bigger than Louisville or Lexington's community. Which is fascinating. I mean, they do have Cincinnati, but Northern Kentucky in general, like you said, super tight knit and pretty large community there. But I think to give more details on why we're doing events, I mean, I think over the last 5 years, we've been building a great audience of people that are highly engaged with us on the podcast and the social channels that we've built. And we really wanted to figure out how to bridge that to in-person events, especially coming out of COVID, as I think people are kind of craving that community and in-person event style. And obviously we're well connected and can put together some great panels. And so we really want to just engage the audience in new ways and bring new experiences. So events were the way that we expanded that this year, and we look to continue to do that in a big way.
Well, I think the difference with our events too is what we've heard a lot of feedback from is people like how laid back it is. So many times you go to a networking event and you feel stiff, you feel like you have to have a conversation or you have to act a certain way. It felt like there was a lot of genuine relationship building happening in our events, and I think that's what people got so excited about. And I'm really looking forward to continuing that. For example, the DevelopX events that we hosted, you saw the same people come out each time. So, and it was like a community being built, a few people more adding each time. Same thing with Middle Tech. And what I hope to happen over the next year, we've had an event in Louisville, Lexington, and Northern Kentucky. So it'll be interesting to see how we can kind of keep the momentum going there.
Well, I think free alcohol helps too.
Free alcohol
that's the only reason, but helps. I'm just saying, like,
spurs
conversation. Differentiator is like, hey,
a nice
we're taking
diet.
care of people.
Yep,
taking care of people. Yeah, no, event planning is a lot harder than you'd expect.
Yeah, it
and it
is.
Also, like, sometimes I get nervous talking on the podcast. It's mostly like not a thing anymore since we've been doing it for so long. But for some reason, even if I'm not speaking at an event, I get like super nervous about putting on an event because it's just like so much can kind of go wrong with sound or with.
Well, we got pretty lucky
drinks
at
we've dealt with it all.
I mean,
we've
DJ
hustled
coming
and solved some
clutch.
problems in last minute.
That's for damn sure. Yeah, that's for sure. All right, moving on from talking about events, something that I'm really proud of that me and TJ got to work on together was the Game Change initiative.
Yep.
So that was a really big deal for Middle Tech UK. UK Innovate is the Ian McClure's office, who we've had on the podcast before. We got to work with them on this Game Change initiative, which is a $160 million grant that UK was kind of leading the charge on pulling all these different partners together. Ian McClure was the director of this program, and they were trying to submit an application for this $160 million grant to modernize manufacturing between Kentucky and Tennessee. And so we got to help create content about that, kind of describing what the Game Change initiative is, all these different partners that are contributing to modernizing manufacturing, people from different industries, people from different universities, from different research labs. And I thought that was a very cool thing to get involved in because it not only aligned with all the different entrepreneurial and innovation things that we do and Kentucky Innovation, who's one of our primary sponsors, but it was also something that actually moved the needle. If we end up getting that $160 million grant, that's obviously a huge deal for this industry. So TJ, I want you to talk about it from the perspective of actually landing that, because you did a lot of the work around communicating what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, and actually making it happen. I got to go and do a lot of the interviews, but talk about actually landing that as a deal.
Yeah, it was great. And I think it really speaks to, like you said, what we do at Middle Tech. Ian obviously being on it, having that connection strong and understanding that we can convey a story and make it interesting, make it something that people want to be a part of, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things and hardest things about the Game Change Initiative is you have to get Kentucky and Tennessee to work on the same page to figure out how they can help both sides and still come out on top. Because a lot of things that we heard was, there is competition out there, and you want to be able to be the better state, but to be able to come together like this and help them do that, that was great. And so, just talking with Jackie over at UK as well. Throughout the entire process, letting her understand, how we can make an impact. Video was big, capturing all the B-roll throughout the event. Like Logan said, interviews, whether it was the why behind Game Change, the how, all that great stuff, figuring out, getting those perspectives from both sides was massive. Photos and I'll let Logan talk about just the final product of kind of doing a 3-part series on it.
Yeah.
Which, he did an amazing job. It's hard for me to take any credit because that's how it really wrapped up was you killing that.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to release that yet. I'm excited to put that out. That'll probably be maybe a bonus episode that we put out between season 6 and season 7. But I essentially got to take all the interviews that I did and pull out certain questions to formulate the what, the why, and the how of the Game Change Initiative. So why it's so important, how it's actually going to happen, and what it actually is. So that's going to be coming out here soon. That was something I put a lot of time and effort into, and I'm very proud of the final product. So be on the lookout for that. Moving on from that, TJ, I want to talk about social media this year, because really this started when we brought you on the team in the first place. We really started placing a lot more importance on social media. But just talk about how our strategy around social media has evolved, some of the things you're most proud of with how our social media team is functioning now, how full court's tied into that, I think would be helpful for listeners as well.
Yeah, no, it's been a very interesting year. The past couple of years I've come on here and talk about some big numbers, and we've had some big numbers this year, but I don't really want to focus on that right now, because what I want to talk about more is understanding we've had a transition this year going from, so heavy on the national and regional tech news, like, OpenAI or whatever the case may be. But we really want to get back to, and I think we've done it the past few weeks, really want to get back to highlighting entrepreneurs in the state and how they can utilize the knowledge that we have, that the founders have, that we bring on. And so, and I would love, this is a shout out to all of you. If you could just reach out to us, let us know what kind of content you want to see, whether it's deep dives from these two talking about their experience on the podcast or in their work environment. Same thing with me. If you want to learn more about social media, would love to figure out how we can be more of value on social for the founders and for the people that listen to our show. And so, this year was really interesting, right? We had some really great wins when it came to, just general national tech news. And I think the biggest thing that we learned is bringing on somebody who can tell a story in 60 seconds. So a major shout out to Austin Short.
Crushed it.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen his face or at least heard his voice on a piece of content that we've posted this past year. He's done an amazing job for both brands, Develop Lex and Middle Tech, where he has been able to not only create stories that are interesting and valuable, but give you so much information in 60 seconds that allows you to take away that you actually, understand what's going on, and that any other extra context you need, you can get it on the website, on the podcast. I really love, if you haven't seen it yet, go check out the piece he did on Raya with Fetal Life. And, that was one of the best pieces of content he's created for us in his time here. We look forward to doing more of those on the media package of KY Innovation side a little bit later. But yeah, it's I think getting more into that, we've known we needed that. All three of us, on the team are super busy, so it's hard to create content like that. So having a guy like Austin do that has been great.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the big takeaway from season 6 with social and with the podcast is the experimentation that went into to this past season to this year. It's a lot of trial and error when it comes to starting a media company and making sure it stays relevant. And as TJ said, we want you guys to reach out and let us know what's working and what's not. We really value that feedback. So whether it's via email, it's Logan at middletech.com or Evan or TJ at middletech.com, or DM us. We really do want to engage with our audience more and know what's valuable to our audience. And
for instance, getting into TikTok. we moved and transitioned really heavily more towards
Yep.
TikTok and those short form videos.
Yeah.
We heard directly from our audience that that's where they were consuming content.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a lot of what season 7 is gonna hold, is continuing to experiment and continuing to, try and figure out what engages best with our audience.
Never ending. And it makes it even harder that we're super niche in a state that's not known for technology and that's part of our growth. Like that's what our mission is to expand that. And so while it's hard and sometimes frustrating, how little this community feels sometimes, being able to do those events and just see how the audience has grown has been great. So, we've got kind of multiple challenges on that front.
Yeah, and I think for season 7, just to talk about it a little bit more, with KY Innovation, our sponsorship has grown for next year, creating these media packages for brands that are making an impact, a direct impact on the innovation side, the tech side, in Kentucky. And so, like I said, check out the video we did with Raya that Austin did. Really great breakdown. Expect more of those heading into next year. Expect more graphic carousels breaking down the why behind the businesses that are making an impact in this state. And I think just understand that we're always going to be experimenting. Every type of content form. I wouldn't be a good founder of a social media marketing agency if we didn't create every piece of content that's out there and at least try something and try new stuff. So yeah, thanks for bearing with us this year, and we look forward to keep on growing.
I think that's a good place to wrap up. So as TJ said, thank you guys for tuning in. We're looking forward to a great season 7, but we're also looking forward to taking a little break between season 6 and season 7. So we'll plan on kicking off season 7 sometime around mid-January. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for the support. Thank you for being part of this community. Until next time. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you all enjoyed. Before signing off here, I just wanted to take a second to thank a lot of the people that make Middle Tech possible. So first off, I wanted to thank JP Blevins for letting us use his space to record. A big thank you to Jacob Spencer, our executive producer, and Lamaya Stearns for producing the episode and getting it out to all of you guys. And then a big thank you to TJ Barnett, Ethan Sharp, and Austin Short for producing all of our social content that goes out on our social channels. So just wanted to make sure that we're highlighting everyone that makes Middle Tech possible. It takes a lot of work to do what we do. And I wanted to make sure that everyone that plays a role in that is recognized and appreciated.